Now, the Celtics beat the 76ers 112-88. Tatum had 51, 13, and 5. And Tatum, why are you laughing, bro?
They fucking suck.
Yeah, bro, they were really bad. They were so bad. One of the worst performances I've seen in a closeout.
Oh, listen, Dehls. For one, 51 points, most points ever in the Game 7 history. He just beat out Steph Curry, who did it in the first round of the Kings series.
I had to show him up for last year.
But you know, the apology forms have to be out for Tatum right now, Dehls.
You're at the top of that list. You're the most disrespectful. You called him the under champ. What do you call him?
I was just being
Under
honest.
king. Under king.
That's what it is.
Can you imagine the first
Boom Fantasy? He got his right.
Respect
You two
me.
folded.
I helped you.
Well, I said that they were going to win regardless.
You said under for Jason
I'm
Tatum.
the only one that picked
Because
over.
I said like 28. I wasn't expecting fucking 50.
You know what's
31.
hilarious is that it actually not hilarious. It's sad. Is I took the under on Tatum. Of course, he rushed for 50. Earlier in these playoffs, in the first round, I took the under on Butler when he erupted for 56.
No way.
Yeah, so I've taken under on
taking
two
the under.
players
Bad
that
luck.
have erupted for 50.
Side.
Keep taking Tatum.
But that's the thing. That when you go under,
on my knees begging you.
they have historic performances. When you go over, they always go under.
I think you just have to respect Jason Tatum and the type of ball player he is.
Tatum has been the under king this year, though.
I know, but when you need him the most, what does he do?
No, he showed up. He's a primetime player. There's no
Respect
doubt.
him.
There's no doubt. But most people are talking about this collapse the Sixers had because Embiid 15 points, 8 rebounds, 5 for 18, and James Harden had 9.7 assists and was 3 for 11.
I'm sorry. This guy tells
I don't know. I'm just trying to talk some ball, man.
I'm on my knees begging.
Joel Embiid averaged 33 in the regular season and 23.7 points per game in the playoffs, the biggest drop-off by an MVP ever. And he's the first MVP to not make a conference finals in NBA history. He does still have time to do that, but as of right now, he has not made it.
He's the only one, yep.
So what do you think about this collapse from Joel Embiid and also the comments he had after the game that some people think, was taken out of context, some people don't think it was?
If you're looking at the I can't win alone, James and I can't win alone, that was taken out of context. The whole quote isn't bad. I mean, to be fair to the other players on the Sixers, Maxey showed up for the most part. Tobias had a good series, I thought. You had even PJ Tucker in the first quarter had 11 points, right? He had 2 or 3 threes in that first quarter.
Probably like plus 50,000.
Yeah, Rob was helping and PJ Tucker was hitting his shots. So the reason why the Sixers lost this series wasn't because of the role players. It was because of Harden and Embiid, right? Embiid, there was really not a game this whole series I felt like he was the best player on the court. Harden, he won 2 games single-handedly, but those 5 other games were all stinkers. Like, he was terrible. And even in this past game, in Game 7, there was multiple times where he had a straight line to the rim, and there was nobody in the paint. He was passing out to guys on the perimeter, and I was wondering why. Of course, Rob Williams there now, Horford to protect the rim, but why isn't he going up and trying to finish? We saw in moments this series that he was able to finish at the rim. For whatever reason, this Game 7, he wasn't able to do that. He was very passive. He wasn't aggressive, and his shot wasn't falling. So for the Sixers, they're going to have a lot of changes. I think Doc gets fired. I think it's inevitable at this point, but I don't think it's fair to just point at Doc and be like, he's the reason they lost. I feel like a lot of people are going to do that. A lot of people in general do that with coaching, where a team underperforms and they just go and blame the coach because that's the easy thing to do. But if your MVP is playing at an MVP level and James Harden was playing like he did in the regular season, there is a strong chance they get past the Celtics, because there was multiple games this series where the Celtics just didn't show up. You look at that Game 5 at home where they got blown out. There was times in the clutch where they folded. That Game 4 in Philly once come to mind. They have that big comeback. Then Jaylen Brown helps off the corner off Harden. They hit a big 3, win the game. So the series was for the taking, and Philly didn't show up. But to the Celtics' credit and to Jason Tatum's credit, who had a terrible, abysmal first 3 quarters of that Game 6, and then showed up in the fourth quarter of Game 7, outscored Philly by himself, kept that energy into Game 7, into Boston, had his best game of his career, one of the best single games in Celtics history, dropping 50 in a Game 7, being able to get past Philly, and he needed that. He said that to Embiid after the game. He's like, yeah, I needed that, because even the whole series, he was having his ups and downs. Even before Game 6 and Game 5, he started off really slow. Game 4, I think he started 0-6 to start, but when that first quarter, he got past Embiid, had a dunk, and then the second shot he took was like, in the post against maybe it was Melton or Maxey, 1-footer mid-range, just look like vintage Tatum that he kind of got away from this season where it's just been all threes, all layups and dunks, but he was getting to the mid a lot. He was in his pull-ups, his post-ups, and I think he only hit 1 3 that entire first half. And then eventually that second half, that high pick and roll game, he was hitting his pull-up threes, which really changed everything. But for Philly, a lot of changes, but you can't just blame this on Doc. Their best players didn't show up.
They had 7 different defensive coverages in the second half of Jason Tatum. None of them worked. Joel Embiid, Tatum just absolutely destroyed.
Fried him.
He's hunting him.
Bad. I mean, and Embiid's a great defender.
Points on Embiid.
Embiid is a great defender. Tatum just had his day. You mentioned it.
Is he though?
On the perimeter, he's
a great rim protector. Let me say
because
that.
I think Embiid. I think there's a misconception about Joel Embiid. He's an elite rim protector, but he can't guard in space.
He cannot.
And it
He's
showed.
big, though.
That's the shit that kills me when it comes to defense and how sometimes we evaluate guys unfairly. There's not these freak athletes. They just don't grow on trees that can just guard the perimeter and then also on top of it be just unbelievable rim protectors on top.
5
of it.
guys, maybe.
At most, like even Giannis gets slack for it because in one-on-one in space or around the perimeter, Giannis is not that good. But of course, he's one of the league's best shot blockers. That's how we should evaluate these big men. They're not as mobile. They're not as athletic to be able to do both of those things. And only a handful of guys in the league can do that. So I feel like it'd be unfair to say he's not a good defender outright or he's an overrated defender just because he's just not mobile enough to defend in space.
Well, they say that about Rudy Gobert because he wasn't able to defend in space, but he defends in space better than Embiid.
But again, I would not call Rudy Gobert a bad defender or, underrate his defense at all just for the fact that he can't defend in space. Or
so many people do.
Again, and a lot of those people should watch basketball more.
This is the thing, and this is why I bring it up, because all year long, when it came to the MVP conversation, just to put this out there.
This is a fair point what you're going to say.
I betted on Embiid to win MVP because I saw the trend, and I think that a lot of Embiid winning MVP was due to unfair critiques of Jokic, whether it came to playoffs, where Embiid was never better than Jokic in the playoffs, even then, and when it came to defense.
Correct.
And now we see in a playoff series that Embiid got torched. I mean, they changed the defensive coverage on Tatum because, for one, they tried different defenders. It was Melton, Tobias, PJ Tucker. Then they tried switching on screens. They had Embiid play up more, and Tatum was torching him. 24 points on 80% field goal. If that's Jokic, he's getting killed for that. And it wasn't just Embiid's bad offensive performance. It was that he was also the worst defender, arguably, on Philadelphia in Game 7, too.
But are you saying that because Jason Tatum fried him?
Yeah, he did fry him.
No, but I'm asking you, is that why you're saying
but that's happened to the Joker before,
can't expect
too.
Embiid to do that. You can't expect Embiid to switch on Tatum the perimeter and stop him. Listen, Tatum was hitting his shots.
It's also
he was
it's
just
not
having
it's
his
not
best game of
even
his career.
He was hitting shots, but it was also easy drives with no resistance to the basket.
Sometimes his effort isn't there. I mean, the game was close in the first half. The game was
close in
really
the third
close.
quarter.
We were down
it just
7 in the second
in the
quarter.
third. They
It was
just
55-55.
Boston just went on a run. Boston just got hot, found that Boston groove, and you go back and you watch the tape. I mean, Philly missed a lot of good shots in that third quarter. They just missed a lot of really good shots that they normally make. So it was tough for them. They was missing shots. Boston was hot. They was firing. It was in TD Garden. That's a tough place to play in. Not many people have gone in Game 7 TD and won that game. So that's especially a team where your MVP has not played like an MVP at all. You're typically not going to win that game. Just to talk about the series, though, this is probably one of the few series you can say, well, if our MVP plays like an MVP, we probably win the series. Like James Harden, Joel Embiid. James Harden gives you those 2 games, but if you look at the series, they won 3 games. One of them Embiid didn't even play in. So realistically, that's a game you look at, and this is a series you look at. We stole one, game 1. And then we was up 3-2 in Game 6 in Philly. This is a series we 100% could have had. And they got to look at this situation damn, this is a team we really had to there's no blaming Doc for this one. You can't sit here and throw this on Doc. He can't be the only scapegoat. You got to look at Embiid. You got to look at Harden top to bottom. Even Maxey, even PJ Tucker, they were all good. But you got to start looking at these 2 stars. Harden, for the most part, out of those 2 games, he wasn't that good. Embiid wasn't really that good all series offensively, and you needed that from him. I know Al Horford's a great defender. I know Rob Will's a great defender. I know they threw a lot of looks at him, but as an MVP, you have to be great. At one point in the series, he wasn't great at all. So I think this really, for me, comes down to Embiid, and even his comments weren't that bad. You know, he was talking about it in the post. It really was. Like, he threw the little joke at the honest. It was cool. It was funny. Like, we need a little laugh at it. But it wasn't that bad. He did say, you know, we have to be better. He, you know, and to his credit, he blamed himself. He took accountability, and that's what we wanted. We wanted to see if he was going to blame somebody this year. You know, he said me, and then he went down and said the role player is James Harden. So he took accountability, and that's all you needed from him. You don't need the extra nonsense outside that. So I thought his post game was fine, but this is another year of him not making a Eastern Conference Finals. And it's getting bad. He's 30, if I'm not mistaken, and
29.
He's 29.
28 or 29.
Body's 40. He's
Body's 40.
Yeah, he's big. You know,
Smart
he gets hurt a lot.
He's
29.
29.
He said down the stretch he was
No, yeah,
gassed.
Embiid's a big guy. He gets hurt. Like,
Wow, he's aging fast. I thought he was younger.
No,
When's his
he
birthday?
missed the first 3 years of his career.
when's his birthday?
March 16th, so he doesn't turn 30 until next year.
Middle of next year. So, clock is ticking, and Harden's getting older. We don't know if he's going to be there next year. I don't know how many roster moves. You said it, like, they need to make major changes. I don't know how many major changes they can make. Maxi's about to get a bag. DeAnthony Melton's a free agent next year.
Harden's really the only move. That'd be a signing
PJ
trade.
Tucker, we don't know if he's coming back. He's 40.
Isn't he on a he has 2 more years on his deal, doesn't he?
Harden,
Unless it's an option.
player
No.
option.
PJ Tucker.
He can retire. He's mad
True.
old.
True.
I'll be honest. Respect to PJ, but bro, they have him fighting for his life out.
If
So-
Harden leaves too, I see it hard. If I see it's hard to believe
I don't
he
see the
stays
point
also.
of like what keeps Embiid in Philly if Harden leaves.
If Harden's gone,
They got a coach he likes.
That's
They're
an interesting
trading Harden.
point.
and the idea that Maxey elevates.
Because you know what?
Word.
I'm actually leaning I'm leaning towards saying that Embiid won't be in Philly. I think that James Harden is not going to be back in Philly, especially after the Commons post game where they asked him about
it feels
his
like nobody
relationship with Doc Rivers, and James Harden said it's just okay. I felt like that was a red flag. And all these reports all season long about James Harden being linked to Houston. Listen, I love Harden. I do.
I don't
You need
believe
to
it
stop.
anymore.
Hey, we got the jersey.
I don't believe it anymore.
You're supposed to be bought in 100% on winning a championship in Philadelphia this season and all year long. Those leaks are not coming from nowhere. Those leaks are coming from his team.
Your camp for sure.
And for Woj to confirm all those rumors to be true today by saying that like it's serious, that he's serious about going back to Houston is a bad look. It doesn't feel like he was bought in on the season. And Joel Embiid, I don't think Philadelphia, if they lose Harden, they're not going to be good enough to win a championship.
No.
And he has to go to a place that has a foundation that can lose him for a stretch of the season and still win games, because the biggest problem to this point is that he's not healthy when he's in the playoffs. That's the biggest knock on Embiid. Even in these playoffs, we can knock his drop-off all we want. He was playing through an injury that was a 4 to 6 week injury. He came back in 2 weeks. I'm not knocking his I'm not giving him an excuse. I'm just adding context to what he went through. And I think the perfect situation for him is possibly the Miami Heat. I think they are one player away from actually being a team that at least I look at as a team that can win it all. And Joel Embiid, his history with Jimmy Butler, maybe there's a trade there with Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo to go get Embiid, and you pair him up with Jimmy Butler and the Heat culture. I think that is the perfect situation for Embiid.
Am I wrong, or
I wouldn't trade Bam for Embiid personally.
am I wrong, or you mentioned a situation for Embiid that would be beneficial if he misses time, they're still able to win games. Wasn't that Philly this year?
For a stretch.
I mean,
Yes.
when Embiid misses game, they had a significantly better record. I'm not saying comparative when he plays and when he doesn't play. I'm saying when he doesn't play, they have a very positive record. If you could look that up for me, that's just off the top of my head. I'm almost positive that's right, though. So what better situation? How much better does it really get unless he's stacking the deck and teaming up with another top 10 player?
11-5.
11-5.
Okay.
That's solid.
Okay, that's
really
more
good.
than
Without
that's
your
what I'm
best player,
saying.
it's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
So without the MVP, you went 11-5, and we talk about situations, and you mentioned also about Harden, whether he was bought in this season. We spoke about it all season long. We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, that this was one of Harden's best seasons, adapting to a different role. One of the most efficient shooting seasons that Harden's ever had as well. We do understand that he's taking less shots, but he's maximizing his opportunity. He's become one of the best playmakers in the game, a top 3 playmaker, one of the best point guards, non-point guards, whatever you want to call James Harden. He just understands how to adapt to a role because, again, how great he is at basketball. But we can't look at it from now that these reports are true that he wasn't taking this season serious. I would not look at Harden at all and think that. This year, all regular season long, Harden was reliable. Yes, he got hurt a little bit towards the beginning of the season, but when he came back, you really saw the Sixers start to play a much higher level of basketball. And we also spoke to how much Embiid benefits from Harden's play as well. And so I don't want to look at these reports from Harden and now start to say that Harden wasn't committed. He simply was not consistent enough in this Boston series. Game 6, we talk about situations where this series was for the Sixers to take and move on to the next round. Game 6, Tatum's having one of the worst starts to a game any superstar could have. It's within reach. There's your opportunity. Tatum's playing poorly. What happened the last time we saw Tatum play poorly in a series? The Golden State Warriors were able to capitalize. They won the series in 6. Here it is, your opportunity. Game 6, Tatum's not playing well at all. Down the stretch of the fourth quarter, you're not aggressive. That being said, Embiid's not aggressive, not dominating the basketball, really not trying to assert himself into that fourth quarter. Instead, now you allow opportunity for Jason Tatum on the opposite side to really take this game and steal a win from the Philadelphia 76ers and force a Game 7 in TD Garden. It was near impossible for them to win 3 games on the road, especially in an environment like TD Garden that's already hostile as is.
It was loud.
To win 2 games was an achievement. That's something that if I'm the Sixers, I can hang my hat on. Hey, we did something that not a lot of teams could do. But that's not good enough because you had a chance to close out at home, especially with their best player playing like garbage for 3/4 of the game, and you weren't able to maximize that opportunity. It's simply on the players. And I can understand what you're saying, Riv, that you're trying to take a little bit of pressure off Doc, but how many games in a row are you going to lose where you have an opportunity to close out and you don't?
He's part of the problem.
You look at both of these situations, both the coaching and the players, and think you have to be better. Again, he tried. Game 7, he threw 7 different coverages at Tatum. Tatum just had one of those games. Fine. Game 7, I'm not looking at and saying, hey, Doc, it is what it is. I'm looking at Game 6. That was your opportunity to take this series, move on. You simply couldn't. Once you saw it go to Game 7, you knew the Celtics weren't losing. So it's going to be interesting to see what Philadelphia does. Embiid, the biggest thing is just him staying healthy. You cannot have it that your best player, every single season, this part of the season comes around, you can't rely on him.
You're not going to tell me that doesn't matter with the James Harden thing. I think it matters. I think it matters as somebody on your team you're looking at it, and I'm thinking you're not going to be here next year. I think it matters.
Going to Vegas in between rounds 1 and 2, maybe that bothers some people too.
Doc even said that was okay.
He said it was okay.
Because Doc, he went to Doc. He's like, "Yo, is this okay?" And Doc said, "Go ahead."
And I don't want to have people misconstrue this. I'm not saying Harden didn't take the season serious. I'm not saying that at all.
I thought that's what you said.
That's not what I said. I'm not saying he took the season serious. Of course, he's a professional at the end of the day. But that's like if we're working on something together and then we're hearing rumors constantly that, hey, you're leaving. You're leaving us. And now, to end the season, we're finding out those reports are true. It feels like, and especially with a championship team, very rarely in NBA history are championships won by a team that is built 1 year in. We have some anomalies like the Raptors, but they already had a foundation before Kawhi went there that it was a plug and play. But very rarely does that happen. You have to build chemistry for years and then get over the hump and go through these adversities as a team together. And when your teammates look at you and they're like, hey, this is a 1 year thing with you, you're not staying here long term, it just doesn't feel like he was all the way bought in on being in Philly long term.
But I feel like now it's 2 different conversations now because, yes, that's a fair statement. He wasn't all the way bought in, but that doesn't take away from everything that he did this season. Starting to question whether or not that's the reason why Philadelphia wasn't able to have
listen,
success.
Harden was great in the regular season. Two great games in the second round. After that, he was miserable.
He was.
In Game 7, he was miserable. As much as Embiid's going to get knocked, Philadelphia has 2 MVPs on his team, 2 scoring champions on his team, and the other guy in Harden had 9 points.
I'm with you. In Game 6, he was
terrible
terrible
for the
too.
majority of the series.
And I want to mention this because Embiid played bad, Harden played bad. Philadelphia really did not show up as a team, even though most of it is on the stars. I want to credit the Celtics because
Definitely.
the adjustment they made Game 6 is what turned around this series.
I'm with you.
Starting Robert Williams instead of Derek White is what turned around this series and limited their offense. It shut the offense down. If you want to give critique to Doc Rivers and not adjusting the offense, I can understand it. Defensively, he did what he can Game 7.
He tried.
But number one, Al Horford was able to guard Embiid with help. You now have Robert Williams in the back line, and that made Embiid hesitate and settle for a lot of jumpers. And
ugly ones.
I was
Horford,
gonna say because we've seen Embiid all season long. That elbow jumper's been his bread and butter.
Horford
It wasn't
did a great
there.
job. A great job of not fouling too.
and Horford, I think he forced Embiid to shoot 44% from the field, which is
Embiid
not
had-
his normal
he had
efficiency.
80 it was around 80 points on 80 shots.
Yeah, so he was hesitating on these drives. And number two, they shut down the pick and roll. What worked all series long was Harden getting these switches. And if he didn't get the switch, it would be a bounce pass to Embiid at that elbow jumper mid-range, and Embiid would get an easy look. Well, the adjustment the Celtics made is that Horford now started staying home on those passes. So he didn't switch on to Harden. He would stay on Embiid, so now that elbow jumper, that pass gets taken out. And Harden had wide open lanes to the basket, but saw Robert Williams and was like, I'm not testing him.
I wouldn't either.
I was gonna say I don't blame him there.
There were some that were still wide open, and the Celtics. These last two games, games 6 and 7, are the best defense they have played all season long. I think round 2, I think they're top 2 defense in terms of teams that are still remaining. So credit to Missoula because Missoula's gotten a ton of shit over this round specifically, even that Atlanta round, because people weren't expecting that to go 6 games. I predicted, I think, 4 or 5. And Missoula was, at the front of that because it is a new coach. This team that just went to the finals. Like, why are you going to 6 with Atlanta? Why is it taking this long to get over Philly? But that change, and the players mentioned too, like how much it matters having Rob out there, how much safer they feel guarding on the perimeter, and Al Horford having him to help with Embiid too. So he was great. And then shout out to Jaylen Brown too, who bit of a... Not his play's never been rocky this season, but in terms of his relationship with the fans, his relationship with Boston this season, I mean, we hear all the rumors that go around. We had even a topic on it a month or two ago, but I think his but what he said after Game 6, saying we need the fans to come, have that energy, because the energy's been okay. We need you to come and be the loudest you have been, and how just ecstatic he was for Tatum in that Game 7. You saw them embrace after Game 6. In Game 7, he's hyping the crowd up when Tatum's going crazy. And he even tweeted out saying how the energy is shifting. It probably doesn't matter a ton, but I think just that mindset flip from your second star, who I don't want to say he hasn't been committed long-term because he hasn't said one way or another, but this kind of feels like that switch for Jaylen Brown where he's like, this is going to be my home for the next 4 or 5 years. Let me embrace this team. Let me embrace the city of Boston. And I feel like that had a big part into how this Game 7 switched when he got elbowed in the face by Harden. And then from there, the run went crazy.
An important thing to mention, too, is the reason why Robert Williams was able to camp in the paint is because he was guarding P.J. Tucker. And the reason why P.J. Tucker's scoring went up in Game 6 and Game 7 is because they were leaving him wide open.
He gets left wide open a lot, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey,
first quarter he was hitting.
It's been like that
He
for
had
a
11
decade.
points. I was like, no
Yeah,
fucking
he was
way.
hitting, but the thing,
It's only going to last so long.
Harden was having these open drives, and instead of him settling for mid-range jump shots or floaters to now make Rob Will pay, because, of course, testing him at the baskets is not an efficient way to score. Even when he would drive, there would be 2 Celtics helping on those, and they would force Harden to make these passes to the corners, and they would live with the results of them. Shutting down the pick and roll game, shutting down Embiid in isolation is why Philadelphia couldn't score. Their offensive rating in Game 6 was an 86 offensive rating when Horford and Williams both shared the floor together, which was 19 minutes, which is a putrid offense. Not even the worst offense rating in the league is this bad, and that's what the Celtics held them to.
I just think it's funny because now the Embiid stands of the world now kind of sit in silence because they were ready to bash the Joker all this time, and he's been a top 2 performer since Game 1.
It's been OD,
and now Embiid hasn't been that good this postseason. Now you just lost in the second round. It's kind of funny how
they got to go
haters,
back into hiding.
The haters definitely
honest.
get
They're
stopped. I definitely like that for them.
It really is, though, unfortunate that he obviously got hurt, but you're on the court,
honest,
you get criticized.
Jimmy's been hurt.
Is what it is.
Brunson's been hurt. Like, stars
but
get
Jimmy hasn't been what he was in round 1, or wasn't what he was in round 1.
He's playing like I get he's been hurt.
That's what you're saying. And I'm with you.
I get
You
he's
play,
been hurt,
you get
but
criticism.
It's not even the
That's
criticism
unfair,
part.
but
Like,
that's the unfortunate
all the
truth.
players being hurt. Like it's towards the end of the year.
I
You know,
agree.
you're-
Listen,
fair.
what I critique the most,
point.
and this is what soured on me on Joel Embiid throughout the season, is that every month there was a new quote about him talking about how the MVP to him either didn't matter or how there was no pressure on him to win it all because he had no MVP. But now you got it. You won it. And he didn't show up to the moment. And a lot of that goes to the Celtics defense because they did lock him down. And, not only having Rob Bill as the backline, but there were times when Horford was a primary defender and they would send Brown and Tatum to even help on him. So
I think they've historically locked him down.
Yeah, it was like 3 guys when Embiid had won. So they did a lot to shut him down. It wasn't just that Joel Embiid was, dog shit. Like the Celtics defense was that elite. And that's the same defense. This lineup is the lineup that was historically great defensively last
Gave
season.
Giannis a lot of fits in that round 2 last season.